In the brief span of a month, the conditions that we're here to address have become even more urgent. As before, the regime in Tehran is the center of the threat, of the terrorism threat against us and the threat to destroy Western civilization as we know it, and to do so, if possible, by obtaining nuclear weapons. It oppresses its own people. It threatens its neighbors. It has made clear that if it gets nuclear weapons, it will not hesitate to use them. There are about 3,500 members of MEK who now live at a place on the border of Iran, in Iraq, that is known as Camp Ashraf, and although it's referred to as a camp, city would be a better description. These people fled Iran and set themselves up near the border so that they can live and support efforts to free their country. In 2003, when the United States invaded Iraq, the residents of Camp Ashraf surrendered their weapons, the weapons they had to defend themselves, and accepted written confirmation from the then Deputy Commander of Allied forces in Iraq, General Jeffrey Miller, on behalf of the United States, that they were protected persons under the Fourth Geneva Convention. From 2003 until 2009, the United States protected the residents of Ashraf and fulfilled the solemn obligation that we had undertaken in 2003. But in January 2009, as some of you may know, the United States turned over responsibility for safety and security to Iraqi security forces. Before that transfer took place, General David Petraeus said that the United States had been assured by the government of Iraq that the residents of Ashraf would be protected, and that he was proceeding with the transfer on the assumption that that pledge would be adhered to. Obviously, the residents of Ashraf have been a great source of anxiety to Iran, which would like nothing better than to see them repatriated to Iran, or at least crippled, so that they cannot pose a threat to the regime. Iran has brought increasing pressure on the Iraqi government within the past month. The situation of the residents of Camp Ashraf has gone from perilous to desperate. On January 7, 2 days after a visit to Baghdad by the Iranian foreign minister, the residents of Camp Ashraf were attacked by people acting at the direction of the Iranian Quds Force stationed in the Iranian embassy in Baghdad, in cooperation with officials of the Iraqi government, and many were injured seriously. The Iraqi security forces, who were supposed to be there to protect the residents of Camp Ashraf, either turned a blind eye or actually assisted the attackers, even though the government of Iraq promised the United States that it would protect the residents of Ashraf. Those Iranian forces, supported by Iraqi forces, have placed at the gates of Ashraf some 180 loudspeakers that are used to threaten and harass the residents day and night, 24 hours a day, and to prevent them from sleeping. This psychological pressure has been ongoing for almost a year. Medical care continues to be denied the residents of Ashraf, and at least one patient in the last month has died due to lack of medical care. Now, this is history repeating itself. We've seen this before. In June of 2009, Nouri al-Maliki, head of the Iraqi government, visited Tehran, supposedly for personal reasons, and the next month, in July of 2009, Iraqi security forces attacked residents of Ashraf. To add insult to the United States, to injury that was suffered by the citizens of Ashraf, that attack took place during a visit to Iraq by Defense Secretary Robert Gates. In spite of the obvious slap in the face to the U.S. government, and in spite of the solemn assurances given by the American military when the residents of Ashraf surrendered their weapons in 2003, our Secretary of State, when she was questioned about it then, said that the attack was an internal matter for the government of Iraq and not a concern of the United States. Well, we're on the eve of negotiations with the Iranian regime by our government and others. The history of the relationship between the United States and the Iranian regime since the 1979 revolution can really be summed up as a series of attempts by the United States to, as the diplomats say, engage the Iranian regime, each attempt slightly less successful than the one that preceded it. I don't have to review that entire history, but an important part of it begins in the 1990s, during the Clinton administration, when the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, also known as MEK, was designated by the Secretary of State under U.S. law as a foreign terrorist organization. That designation continues to this day. It continues to be, as it was then,